Hi, this is Abhijit from Beyond Vectors. Let's continue with our Python Basics series of videos. Let me share my screen and get started. So there's an interesting quote which I remembered reading recently, which said, if you want to make coffee from scratch, then you need to create the universe. Well, most of us don't create the universe to make a cup of coffee. We either use instant coffee or we take ground coffee and make filter coffee, right? So similarly, if you want to build a program, you don't write every line of that program from scratch. You could use what are called modules. Modules are Python files which contain reusable code, right? So Python standard library provides hundreds of built-in modules, and you don't need to install it. It comes free with Python, right? Some of the commonly used modules could be like JSON, CSV, datetime, collections, counter, right? So JSON, for example, helps you parse JSON objects and serialize them, right? We'll look at that in a moment. CSV would read like comma separated value files. Date time helps you work with different dates, times, and basically manage a calendar in applications. So what do you need to do to use these modules? You need to import these modules into your program. Now there are different importing styles. What you see here is the first one is import JSON. Basically, you import the entire module. Now you could import a module or you could import a specific item from that module too. So a way of importing is from datetime, import a specific item called datetime. Or from collections, import counter, right? So this is a specific class. Or import CSV. The other way is you give it a different name. You import CSV and call that as CSV mod, right? So these are different import styles, and you could use either of these in your Python programs. So let's look further at some piece of code where we use these imported modules to perform JSON serialization, to do some date parsing, and to do some sales analytics. So the code looks like this. Initially, I have import JSON, and from datetime, I'm going to import an item called datetime and time delta. And from collections, I'm going to import a class called counter. Okay. And this is my JSON object. Now, JSON object is very prevalent in industry, and seems to be the very good way of capturing unstructured data, right? So it starts with a list, and within the list, there is a dictionary, and each dictionary has key value pairs. So the list is something which you see here, and within that, there is a dictionary for every item. So the SKU 1, 2, and 3. And each SKU has a name, a price, and stock. So a JSON object is something like this. Now, if I want to use it, right, I can use this function called json.dumps. And I can pass this catalog with indent 2. And if I print it, I get to see this JSON object uh, in a serialized fashion in a clear readable format. Now, if you want to push some data back from serialized way to JSON object, then you can do json.loads, right? So catalog._JSON is in the fashion which can be used in the Python program. And I can always use json.loads, and catalog_JSON can be converted back to the format, which is JSON format, through which you can actually move it from application to application using APIs. Okay. So what you've seen right now is the way we used JSON module to serialize it using json.dumps, and to again parse it and send it back into JSON format using json.loads, right? Now these are pre-built functions which come with the JSON module. Next, let's look at date time. Many of our applications use date and time, right? So if I think about an order date in e-commerce, look at the date time here, right? There's a specific format in which I can give this. So I give the year, I give the month, the day, and then the hour and minutes, right? So this was when this order was captured. Delivery date could be 5 days after order date. Now, date time allows you to kind of do this in an effective way, right? So I took an order date, which is a date time object, and added a time delta with the days is equal to 5, and it took care of all the other nitty-gritties of managing the calendar underneath, right? So it simplified my program. The next thing which we are going to see is where we can do some analytics using a package class called counter, and it is from this package called collections. So look at this sales count, right? If I do sales count is equal to counter with the sales log, and this is the sales log, right? Different sales have occurred here. Automatically, it does a count of the sales, right? Now, if I do the total transactions as a sum of sales count dot values, automatically I get the total transactions, right? And if I want to look at top sellers, again, I could write a Python program to do that, but the more effective way to do it is for product count in sales underscore count dot most common. The moment I do most common, I get the top selling items. So this think of it as easy ways of making a Python program, clear and crisp. So let's look at the output of each of these code, right? So the first place where we did a print statement was we serialized the JSON object and we did a print of catalog underscore JSON. So look at catalog as a JSON, right? So you see the serialized object here. Now catalog underscore JSON can now be used in the Python program, right? Now let's look at the parsed back, which is where the three products, the first one is wireless mouse, and that's the second piece here, right? Where you did JSON.loads. Next, well, let's look at the order date, right? When was the order placed? It was placed on 2025, March 15th at 2:30. Expected delivery is going to be March 20th, right? So days until delivery is 5 days. So this takes care of all the complexities like days of the month, holidays, and all these can be managed effectively with date time. Now let's look at sales analytics, right? Let's look at the total transactions. The total transactions is 10. So if you look here, each of this is a transaction, right? In the sales log. So each one of this is a purchase, and I did a count of that using a counter method. So there were 10 transactions, and the top sellers were wireless mouse, USB, and laptop stand and webcam, right? So it automatically ranked it. So hope you understood how we could use modules, import them, and use that modules in the Python program. All right. Now you have some practice exercises where you can import CSV module and then play with this. So you can go ahead and play with that at your own time. Now the next topic I want to discuss is a very important topic. This is regarding API requests. So API stands for Application Programming Interface. What is an API? Think of it as a way through which programs communicate with each other over the internet, right? So the APIs will use something like HTTP or HTTPS method. And within that, there are different things which you can do with API. You can either get or retrieve data using this method called get. You can create data with the method called post. You can update the data using the method called put, or you can delete the data with a delete method, right? So this is it's the most structured way in which programs communicate with each other over the internet, right? So the Python's request library makes this HTTP calls very simple. Okay, so again, if I import this module request, then I can do request.get with an URL, and I pass, HTTPS with api.example.com with products. So I can retrieve the products from this API, right? And I can look at the data, which is response.json, and parse that JSON. Okay. Now, once you kind of expose any information via API, you need to know if the application behind is healthy, it's giving you right data, and things like that. And there are some standard status codes which will enable you to do that. If the status code is 200, then it means the application is fine. If the status is 404, then it means that the application did not find the data which you're looking for. It gives you, if the status code is 500, then it means that you have a server error, right? And just as before, if you want to parse the JSON, you can use the JSON object with .json method. And you can do things like error handling, right? You can always check the response.status underscore code to look at the status, or use a raise for status method. And this will all help you in simplifying your program as well as communicating effectively with other programs. Okay, so now let us look further into a code where we hit a public API. Okay, APIs can be public or they can be private with some, authentication. But here, let's look at how we can hit a public API. So it starts with import of requests, and then there is a URL, right? This has HTTPS dummyjson.com/products with a question mark and limit is equal to 5, right? Now with this, if I hit response is equal to request.get with the URL, I pass this URL inside. What do I expect to get? I expect to get 5 products. Okay, so now let's very quickly go and look at what is underneath this API URL itself. Okay, so let me do it as pretty print. Notice that it has products, and each product, this is a JSON object. Each product has an ID, it has a title, description, category, price, discount, rating, stock, and all that, right? So all of these information is there, and it probably has some 200 and odd products in this, right? And what I have asked here with limit is equal to 5 is give me 5 products. Okay. Now what I need to do first is look if this API is functioning well, or if the application behind it is functioning well. So I do response.status underscore code and I print that. And then the next thing is I want to understand what is the content type, right? So if I look at response.headers.get and I look at the content type, then I kind of get what is the specific content type. Let's look at that specific things. So I got the status code to be 200 and the content type is an application/JSON with a character set and UTF-8. Okay, so this is what we got with just this one line of code. Okay, this and this line of code, 2 lines of code. Now next, what do we do? If the response status underscore code is 200, which means if the response is okay, then I pass that JSON from that response to a variable called data in Python. Okay. And then once I have this data, I can look at data of products and pass it to products. Okay. So this is a dictionary for me now, right? So I've just passed products and I can print each of these products, right? So I'm going to print the fetched products and I'm going to print what all am I going to print? I'm going to print the title, the price, the rating, and the category, right? So this is what I'm going to do. And if the status code is false, which means it's not 200, then I print an error code. Okay. So here we know that the status code is 200, which means it's not false. So I got 5 products here. It's the Essence Mascara, then eyeshadow palette with mirror, powder canister, red lipstick, red nail polish. And for each of them, I got price, rating, and category. So you saw how quickly I could use the JSON object, get the data from the response, and then from there on, I could print it. Okay. Finally, the last part which I want to talk about is the error handling. So let's say we have a bad request, right? Let's say I ask for a product 999999. This product doesn't exist. Okay. So we have to get an error message for this. So if I do a response dot and I pass this to bad response variable, and if I do a bad underscore response dot status underscore code, let's see what status we get. So we got status 404. What is it saying? That this item at 999999 did not exist. So this item was not present, right? So I could print the error response and basically say the product with ID 9999 was not found. Okay. Hope you found this specific concept useful. It's very important. If you are building agents eventually, you need to understand how to deal with APIs and talk to APIs. Okay. That's all for today. Thank you.